But what I would like to do is just read out some of the key results that I found with regards to the Attention Dividend study. And I think for me, you spoke about the three distinct brand payoffs, which is digital out of home drives long-term brand profitability, it boosts brand recall, and obviously it increases the consumer's desire to choose your brand, which I think is three really, really powerful distinct payoffs when it comes to this study. And I think that really underscores the need to include premium large format digital out of home into your media mixes for the client's campaigns and strategies for the year ahead in 2026.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Welcome to today's episode of Beyond the Billboard, and thank you so much for joining us. This is our second episode of 2026, and we are so excited for the content and the amazing guests we have planned for the year ahead. Today's episode, we're going to be discussing the Attention Dividend study. The Attention Dividend study is so critical because it touches on something that every marketer is struggling with today: attention. This was a major theme in 2025, and we know that this will go into 2026 and beyond. Today, we'd love to welcome Steve Bernard, who is the head of insight at Ocean Outdoor. Steve, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a great privilege to join you today.
We can't wait to get into the details of the study and the work that you've done in partnership with Lumen and Ubiquity. The Attention Dividend study was done in June 2025, and it focused on showcasing the power and impact of large format premium digital out of home. So we're going to be getting into all of the detail in today's episode. We're going to be discussing the methodology, the insights, the results, as well as really understanding how is this information put together? Why is it so important? In an out-of-home landscape, it's always so important for us to have some nuggets and research to showcase to our clients, to show the power of out-of-home. Why are we motivating for out-of-home? How are you going to get your ROI on out-of-home? So all of these things will be unpacked in our episode today. Before we get into the detail of today's episode, Steve, I wanted to ask you, for anybody listening who doesn't know who Ocean Outdoor is, please can you give us a bit of information about who you are and what you bring to the market?
So Ocean Outdoor is one of the big out-of-home media owners in the UK and now extensive across Northern Europe. We have markets in the Netherlands, Scandinavia and Germany. And essentially at Ocean, we lead the way in premium large format digital out-of-home advertising. Our art is turning spaces into places through a deep understanding of our environments, and we define ourselves by building commercial value from existing spaces and then turning them into high-value places. And we have some very key landmarks, I guess, within that portfolio, including the Piccadilly Lights in the heart of London's West End, and also many other very high-value locations. One of the reasons why it's so good to talk to you guys today is that we are, as a business, insight-led and creatively driven, whether it's 10 years of pioneering neuroscience research or the latest from our Ocean studio teams or labs, pioneering deep screen technology, and what we're going to talk about today, the Attention Dividend project.
Thank you so much for that intro, Stephen. It's great to have somebody from Oceans join us again. We have had Catherine Morgan join us before, who heads up Ocean Labs from an innovation perspective, and it was incredible to sit down with her to understand how these beautiful, large out-of-home formats you guys have are brought to life through innovation, through Catherine and her team on the lab side, and we can't wait to get into the detail of the Attention Dividend with you today. And to kick us into the episode, Steve, I wonder if you could just outline for us, why did you decide to do an attention-based study, and what was the methodology for the specific study?
I guess where this started for us at Ocean was looking at all of the fantastic work that Lumen had undertaken in the advertising industry over a 10-year period, not just in an out-of-home context, but across a lot of other digital screen-based media channels. And us thinking, where is our story as Ocean for premium large format digital out-of-home within this attention context? You've said in the introduction yourself how important it is for us to continually prove the attention-grabbing nature of our media formats. There is so much, almost clutter out there in the media industry today on screens. It's how do we show that our formats cut through in the most effective way possible? So again, we really wanted to kind of look at premium large format digital out of home in that really important context. There had been some fantastic work done on out of home formats in this country. There'd been some really good work undertaken by JCDecaux and by some of the specialist buyers, such as Group M. But what that work had done was to almost, I guess, position out of home at its broadest as a low attention medium. What was coming out of those studies generally was that small format, digital out of home and static sites as well, would garner somewhere in the region of 1.3 seconds worth of attention time. Now, again, we looked at that work and thought, well, we fundamentally believe that what we specialize in at Ocean, that being premium large format digital out of home, would be significantly increased from that 1.3 seconds. So that's really where this started for us. In terms of the methodology, well, we followed the standard Lumen template. We were very mindful when we were constructing this study that we want to produce something which can be contextualized against other studies that Lumen have undertaken. So we've done this study in exactly the same way as the other studies have done. And that's really in two parts. The first part is using Lumen's patented eye tracking technology to understand how long people are looking at screens for, and frankly, whether they're looking at screens at all. And then the second part of that methodology is a follow-up survey where we're able to ask our participants a series of questions, a sort of brand questions, things like recall, things like brand choice, desire, etc., to make that link between attention and outcomes, to firm up that link between attention and outcomes.
Yeah, Steve, that's great. I wanted to ask you, when you say that they do eye tracking, what does that mean? Is it a person sitting in front of a screen and they kind of have a set of glasses on, or can you just explain exactly how that eye tracking movement works, just so that everyone can understand how that data is collected?
Sure. So there are a few different ways in which this kind of work can be undertaken in terms of the eye tracking. There's been some experiments with glasses, but they tend to be a bit rarer. We have followed the more general approach, which is to record filmed journeys, if you like, of different out-of-home locations or different locations in which the sites that we're testing exist. So, for example, we used a big screen outside the Westfield shopping mall in White City in London. And what it typically involves is recording a typical journey from somebody, and then you are showing that in a lab setting to somebody wearing the eye tracking glasses. And those eye tracking glasses follow the eyeball. They track the movement of the eyeball, and by doing that, we can ascertain whether our screens are being looked at, and crucially, for how long.
I think it's important that kind of people understand it's not just people sitting in front of a screen, as you say, in a lab environment with an ad that pops up. It's more that it actually shows the journey of the way that ad would be viewed kind of in the actual location where it is. So I think that's great. The other thing I also just want to mention while you're speaking on the methodology is that, in South Africa, we've had a lot of conversations with a lot of guests around measurement. So, and what we've really learned is with a lot of our guests is that the measurement conversation, although each market is in different phases and have different partners, we all have similar conversations around not everything is measured. Some of the methodology is slightly different. How would you measure for transit versus how would you measure in a mall? But measurement comes up a lot. And I think we've really seen the conversation starting to change around attention. So it's still important to know how many people saw the ad, but it's as important to know how long were people looking at the ad for, or how do we know that the ad was actually making an impact, or how do we know that people were seeing it? So that's what I really love about the research. While we're still sitting in the methodology kind of pillar, I wanted to ask you, you've mentioned that the study focuses on large format digital out of home. I wanted to find out, when you did the study, did you take into consideration the loop buy versus an impression buy? In the South African market, we are doing impression buy and loop-based buying on digital, and there's a combination of the two, but we are very much still selling digital out of home from a loop perspective, so 1 of 10 or 1 of 12. Did that factor into the research at all and the methodology?
Well, we still, in the UK, generally have a standard length time of an ad on a digital out-of-home screen of about 10 seconds. That's effectively what the baseline, I guess, for ad length in the UK. And that's what this study was testing. We used 6 different campaigns within the study, and each of them were featuring digital out-of-home ads for those 6 advertisers, which were 10-second loop lengths. We had to do that because that, as I said, is the standard for what we have in the UK. And that is important for us, especially being looking at external screens where the, I guess you could say the dwell time is was limited when people are going past and are undertaking their various journeys through different cities. Of course, that would be different if we were talking about an internal location, such as a station or a shopping mall. We have many different screens in shopping malls at Ocean in the UK, but that wasn't a feature of our study. We wanted to try and make this, we really wanted to try and focus on the screens that make Ocean unique in our market. And that would be screens which are, we define them as 20 square meters, but external locations. The big difference is that they reach typically pedestrian audiences. So again, taking all of that into account meant that we wanted to keep it to the standard 10-second length of time for an ad.
Thank you for sharing that. And you've sparked quite a few questions in my mind. So I think the first thing is I was going to ask you, obviously in each market, what is considered premium large digital out of home is based on the actual landscape and the types of formats that exist. So for you, the classification is 20 square meters and larger that would fall into that category, and obviously being external, if I've understood correctly.
Correct. Yes, that's right.
I just wanted to clarify that because obviously when we're looking to utilize this research to rationale and out-of-home strategy, or if any of the teams here in South Africa are looking to use it, when they get asked by a client, what is considered a premium large format digital out-of-home within the study, it's always interesting to know, what was that classification.
From Sunrise in Josie to lights that never sleep, we are Network X outdoor media specialists. With over 1,000 media platforms across Gauteng, we don't just place ads. We capture audiences right where life happens. From premium digital displays to iconic city views, we turn attention into impact every single day. So join the experience. Network X out of home.
I just wanted to say thank you so much for unpacking that methodology of the study. And I think also for you and Livia to just really underscore the need to have a study that was focused around attention. And I know that when you had an inquiry or looked at, how important attention was, I think 75% of marketers agreed that attention was a key focus area for you when you were doing this attention dividend study. And it really just showcases why there was this need for it. And understanding the methodology is obviously critical for us as we move into the results conversation. I'd love you to share the 3 distinct payoffs that came out of the study for premium large format digital out of home, and what other results you're able to derive from the study. I think important one for us here in South Africa is there's a lot of conversation about digital online media, taking a large portion of the out of home spend here in the South African market, and that is why the need for data studies, measurement to really rationale and support the effectiveness and the power of out of home in those strategic conversations with clients is so important right now, because we need to be able to measure against the likes of digital online media. And what I found quite interesting coming out of the study was looking at some of the results that also compared, and showcased how a large format digital out of home format actually rivals digital online formats, which I found really, really interesting out of the results. So yeah, over to you if you can share some of those results with us from the study.
Sure. Well, to summarize the distinct payoffs, we had 3 from the study. The driving of long-term profitability, the enhancement of memorability, and the creating of the desire to choose your brand or an advertiser's product. Now, just to unpack a few, some of those. When we talk about profitability, we've had such a big challenge within the out-of-home industry here in the UK, and I suspect this is certainly true in your territories. How do we prove ROI? And what does ROI even mean? What's really, what are we really talking about when we talk about a return on investment? Is it long term? Is it short term, for example? So this is the first time that we have been able to start to identify what the long-term profitability, and we use the term long-term deliberately because we've spent so long trying to prove short-term increase in sales through out-of-home. The long-term is really important to us. We are all about long-term brand building. And we'd happened upon, I guess, a study that Lumen had undertaken with Ubiquity, well, really now about 18 months ago, back in 2024. And this was called Maximizing Profit Through Attention. And as I say, it was a joint study between Lumen and Ubiquity, whereby one of the things they found was this almost perfect relationship between the attention levels that a media format delivers and the long-term profitability, long-term, ROI that is generated alongside this sort of perfect linear relationship between the two things. And so we felt that this was a really important thing to emphasize through our results, in that we are showing that there is a significant increase in the length of time that people look at our screen versus standard out-of-home screens. So I said this, the generally accepted benchmark for small formats were 1.3 seconds. We found that our screens delivered on average 3.9 seconds, so 3 times greater. And so if you undertake some calculations that Lumen do with that 3.9 seconds, and you multiply it with the viewability of the formats, and for out of home that's 100%. And the reason it's 100%, and we're confident in saying it's 100%, is because we, and this is a really important point, we don't sell impacts to our advertisers that haven't already been verified as views by route. Again, this out-of-home currency that we have in the UK. So when we say that a screen in the middle of Birmingham generates 1 million impacts in a 2-week period, we know that's based on 100% viewability. It could, of course, in theory, be much higher than that, but we can't verify that. But we can verify that 100%, and it will say it's 1 million impacts, for example. So when you multiply the 3.9 seconds by the 100% viewability, you get to about 3,900 attentive seconds per 1,000 impressions. Now, this sounds a little bit kind of in the weeds and a bit kind of, maybe wonky at times, but the attentive seconds per 1,000 impressions is really the Lumen. It's really the measure of attention, of true attention. It would be fair to say that some online formats generate, you could say, 3 seconds, maybe 4 seconds, maybe 5 seconds of attention. But the other side of that equation, the viewability, isn't there. Lots of Lumen studies have shown that relatively small proportion of people actually see ads on social media or on desktop, online, etc. And so what happens is that the attentive seconds per 1,000 impressions decrease it or is limited for those online media. And we actually come out looking really well. And so we use all of that data to then say, well, if we are generating a significantly higher level of attentive seconds per 1,000 impressions than these online formats, then it stands to reason, if you overlay that data onto the Lumen Ubiquity work, that we are generating longer-term profitability, because there's this almost perfect relationship between attention and profitability. So that's why we're confident in making that assertion, and that assertion has been backed up by Lumen, by their team that we've been working with, and it's the story really that it's the fundamental story that we've taken to the market, which is, as I say, we've always believed in out-of-home being a long-term brand building platform, but now we're starting to talk in the language of profitability, of ROI in the long run. We have greater memorability that is generated for the advertisers exposed to premium large format digital out-of-home than on D6s. We have the data from our study which shows that if you add video formats, so that would be full motion or 3D deep screen, if you add those layers into your campaign, you generate higher levels of brand choice and desire. So that's how we rationalize that sort of that overarching point about generating higher levels of profitability. So.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing that. And I think it's incredible that we can have these types of conversations around out of home and driving ROI and brand profitability, because that's what clients have been holding us accountable for, right? Those are those conversations that we needed to have answers to. And I think it's incredible that you are leading the charge on this when it comes to these types of studies, obviously in partnership with Lumen and Ubiquity and all the others that you've been doing with them, like the vital ingredient, which is really showcasing how digital out of home is that primer. So yeah, I just think like you've been really leading the charge when it comes to these types of studies. And I think for us in South Africa, it's a space that we need to start investigating and investing in when it comes to these types of neuroscience studies. But what I would like to do is just read out some of the key results that I found with regards to the Attention Dividend study. And I think for me, you spoke about the three distinct brand payoffs, which is digital out of home drives long-term brand profitability, it boosts brand recall, and it increases the consumer's desire to choose your brand, which I think is three really, really powerful distinct payoffs when it comes to this study. And I think that really underscores the need to include premium large format digital out of home into your media mixes for the client's campaigns and strategies for the year ahead in 2026. But some other really great results that I would also just like to highlight was around premium large format digital out of home delivers 5 times greater attention than digital online formats, which I really think is fantastic. And it also really helps us with the conversation around out of home competing with digital online here in South Africa. Yes, this study is not localized to South Africa specifically and is for the market in the UK. And until we have this type of study here localized and invested in, we can only use the global studies to kind of proxy when we're looking at our strategies. And then I think a really nice other piece that came out of it is that full motion delivers 2.5 times greater brand choice than static or still digital out of home. So I think that really also just showcases for our clients, we're often having these conversations around, should they go full motion? Should it be slight animation? Should it just be stills? When we look at that type of result, that also really helps the out of home specialist on agency side have more of those informed conversations. Obviously, taking into account where is the screen? Is it an internal environment? Is it an external environment? Is it pedestrian traffic? Is it obviously car traffic? But it's still a really, really great result that came out of your study. And then I think the third one that obviously is amazing is deep screen 3D delivers 3 times greater brand choice, which is exactly what you were speaking on now, Steve, which I think is also really fantastic. And we're seeing more and more of deep screen and 3D being implemented here in the South African market as we have more screens with obviously that capability. So hopefully we see in 2026 more of that 3D deep screen type of creative being utilized, because it obviously showcases in itself in the attention that it demands and the impact that it creates. So I just wanted to recap some of those results and just say, it's a really, really powerful study. What I would love to now ask you, Steve, is for a market like South Africa, if media suppliers or agencies want to start investigating and investing in these types of studies, where would you say is a good starting point? If you've got any advice when it comes to doing this from a local market point of view, please do share for ourselves and our listeners.
Great question. Thank you. I think there's been so much fantastic literature that's been created on this topic in out of home in the UK and in Europe as well. I'm really pleased that you mentioned the 2.5 times increase in memorability for full motion versus static digital. That was one of the original findings from an earlier piece of neuroscience work that we'd undertaken at Ocean. And that's where that study and the Attention Dividend really nicely dovetail each other. We're always trying to look at the value of innovation, I guess, and to your point, that's what we want to investigate more. I think talking to research partners like Lumen, who have established a global footprint, who do studies all over the world, is an absolute must. They've got a huge amount of expertise, of course, on the on attention. They are pioneering new technologies all the time to make sure that this kind of research is as more and more robust as possible. And I think it's about being first, really. It's about taking that plunge and saying, okay, I want to work with a company like Lumen, look at what's been done in the UK market, in Europe, and saying, okay, we're gonna take the plunge on this and have a look. And that being first out of the gate to tell this story gives you a massive advantage in sort of bringing it to life, but owning it. Again, one of the reasons why I'm pretty pleased actually you cited some of that neuroscience work is because we led the charge at Ocean in terms of using neuroscience as a methodology. Yeah, it's quite different from what we're talking about with the attention dividend, but as a methodology, it had a massive uniqueness, and it gave Ocean a particular voice, I guess, in terms of the research space in out-of-home in the UK market. So that being first and pioneering new types of studies in your market, I would say will put you at a massive, massive advantage in the long run.
Steve, thanks for that. And I think it's great insights on, we are South African based. We want to understand how do we take local learnings and implement them in our market. And I think you've outlined a great starting point there. As we head towards the close of our episode, I wanted to ask you, was there anything that came out of the study that was unexpected, or anything that you thought, wow, okay, when we set out to do this study, I didn't expect to see that type of results, or this, something came up that you didn't expect?
I think one of the things was the fact that when we investigated the more, I guess you could say, the more creative, innovative executions like deep screen, 3D deep screen, and full motion, they didn't necessarily capture more attention in terms of length of time spent with the content, spent looking at the content, with your eyes sort of fixated on the content. But they did sort of punch well above their weight in terms of delivering on the outcomes. So there was high levels of recall, of choice, desire, etc., for those what we call video formats, despite the fact that they garnered effectively almost the same amount of attention time as the static large format digital. So one of the things that we alighted on, therefore, was the efficiency of creative formats like that. Again, I think we've done some really interesting work. We've done some really interesting work on 3D deep screen generally, about how that captures the imagination. We've done some fantastic qualitative work on those type of formats, and it's always amazing when you talk to people on the street. They obviously aren't involved in advertising or media, and they really are captivated by it. It really has been a fantastic innovation over the last few years. But again, telling clients and advertising agencies a story of efficiency well as effectiveness is really, really important for us. And so that was something that really leapt out, as well as the kind of main findings. That was something that really leapt out and spoke to us quite profoundly, I guess. Other things that came out that we were really pleased with was, well, I guess this sounds obvious now, that we would generate higher levels of attention time than standard out-of-home formats. I guess we kind of would have expected that. But I think the degree to which we did so was really, really good. As I say, 3.9 seconds versus a traditional benchmark of 1.3 seconds, 3 times greater. That again was really, really strong. And again, the opportunity to contextualize that result against digital platforms. And what we found is when you look at Lumen's benchmarks for an array of different online formats, social media, I think we were pretty much above, or at least comparable to, everything else.
Steve, thank you so much for joining us. It's been fantastic to sit down with you and get a deeper understanding of the attention dividend study. And thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much, guys. Really, real pleasure to join you today. And thank you.
Thanks for joining us today to go beyond the billboard. Subscribe to our podcast to ensure you don't miss out on our exciting content.
Join us again to go beyond the billboard.
1, 2.